Hi, everybody. It is Alexus with Lockstep Mortgage, and we are starting our podcast today for Hops in a Home. I wanted to introduce the beer that we were going to be drinking today, which is Strawberry Kiwi Blonde with strawberry and kiwi added. Ooh. And it's from the Lone Tree Brewing Company, and so far we have some good reviews on it. So if you want to go check that out. So today is going to be our women's special. We wanted to hear from all of the female voices in our community in different areas about just their experiences. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity to open up a good dialogue just about our time in this field. So I have Joy Shirk, who is with Live Laugh Denver Realty, and she is a real estate agent. I have, what's your last name?
Sullivan.
I have Michaela Sullivan with Charles Schwab. She is a financial advisor. And I have Misty Salazar, and she is now with J.G. Gardner Homes, which is a new build construction. So, ladies, I'm going to have you just kind of introduce what your role is, how long you've been in it, your experience and background, and then we'll get into some other questions. So, Joy, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I'm with Live Laugh Denver Real Estate Group in Denver, and I've been over there for about over a year, and I actually came from event planning and hospitality, so that's my background. And after the pandemic, as you all know, hospitality took a huge hit, so I really had to pivot, take a deep look inside, and figure out what transferable skills I had and where that was going to be. And real estate was just a natural fit for me for a lot of reasons. But yeah, real estate is my calling at this point. That's how I feel.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, Michaela, go ahead.
Hi, Michaela Sullivan. I am a financial advisor. I've been with a big firm for about 7 years now in various roles, specifically an advisor for the last 4. And my background prior to that, I did taxes for a little bit, just about a year. And I also worked at Victoria's Secret for like 7 years when I was young. So lots of different things in my background.
Awesome. Misty, go ahead.
So I'm Misty Salazar, and I am with J.G. Gardner Homes. They are a custom home builder. So over the last 6 years, I have been working for various home builders. I also did a stint in the title world, and previous to getting into real estate, I was in higher ed sales, helping people go back to school for about 8 years. Worked in admissions for various different educational institutions.
Awesome. And if this is your first time with us and you have not heard from me, I am at Lockstep Mortgage and as a broker. I came from Canvas Credit Union, so I was in retail banking. So just doing more of the teller, then banker role, and then went into mortgages and lending. And before that, I also did in retail. I was at Target. So I did that for quite a bit of time before I came into finances. So that's just a little bit about all of us, and I'm really excited to chat with everybody today. Okay. So, what brought you to the field you're in today? Kind of where did that start, and what made you go down this path? Go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, after COVID, I had to kind of pivot. One of my best friends, we worked together for years, and I call her my work wife because we've worked together several, places. We actually met studying abroad. And even before, COVID, I remember when we worked together, she bought a home with an agent at Live Laugh Denver Real Estate Group. And she was like, you would be an amazing real estate agent. You need to come on. And I remember going on walks with my friend, and she was like, I'm thinking about going into real estate. I was like, well, if you leave, I'm coming with you. And, now I look back on that, I'm like, oh my goodness. So, leading up to that, when everything kind of went down, my identity was wrapped up in being an event planner. That was I loved it. It was high stress, high stakes. I used to plan conferences for huge, conferences of 500 to 1,000 people. And, I kind of like that. I don't know if I'm addicted to high stress stuff, but that's a whole other conversation in a bottle of wine. But I remember, talking to my dear friend at Live Laugh, and she decided to jump ship from hospitality, and she went into real estate and did it for about a year. And I felt like my career had run its course. Like I was not challenged anymore. And I also felt like after the pandemic, I wasn't making a difference in the field that I was in. Not that event planning is not like a good, like valuable job, but it just wasn't for me anymore. I needed something that like I could make an impact. So that's what led me to real estate. I bought a home in 2019. I had a great experience. I love home decor. I love interior design. I love just relationships and just building relationships with people. And I feel like that's real estate for me. So I had coffee with somebody this morning, actually, and they're actually looking for a financial advisor. So. And a new build.
There you go.
And a lender.
Yay! That sounds like a great.
So glad we're talking today.
We'll have a whole team of women.
Yes.
Nice.
It's gonna be like a women's closing.
Exactly. It's all about connections, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know if that answered, but
That was great. Yeah. Michaela?
Well, I think my introduction to financial advising all sort of happened on a whim. I mean, from a young age, I always wanted to do something where I could make a difference and help people. And I was really lost in college and switched my major, probably 6 times, and finally landed on accounting. And I had switched that from like human services, social work type of stuff. And I picked it because I figured out that I thought accounting was a lot of fun. I know, weird. But I was working for this guy doing taxes, and his best friend works for the company that I work for in the role that I have now. And I used to boss this guy around that I worked for. He would call me his boss, and we'd come into work, and I'd have this like to-do list of things that we had to get done, and he'd want to go to lunch, and I'd say, no, Dennis, we have to check at least 3 things off this list. And so his friend said, I think that you would be so good at this. Why don't you come check it out? And I ended up applying on a whim. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know what a mutual fund was when I started, and I fell in love with it, and I found something where I can make a real difference in people's lives and make money doing it, and I'm good at it. So long-winded way of a mutual friend got me into it.
Question, did you always start with Charles Schwab, or were you with a different company first?
I did start with Charles Schwab, and again, I didn't know anything. Driving by different financial firms. I remember seeing when I was starting at Schwab, I saw this Edward Jones building, and I was like, well, Edward Jones seems like a cool name, it sounds really professional
right.
and high class. And so I ended up at Schwab just kind of by chance, but what I figured out was not every financial firm does what's in the best interest of their clients. And what's kept me at Schwab is the culture, the client-centric culture, and I can come to work every day and make recommendations to my clients that I believe in my core are in their best interest. So I feel very grateful that my whole time has been at Schwab.
Awesome. Misty?
So, I was working in higher ed sales, and I had been there for 8 years. I loved what I did. I was helping people go back to school or earn their master's degree. Either they started, didn't finish, just a variety of things. And the company that I worked for, there were 3 locations: Denver, Chicago, Orlando. And I was in Denver, obviously, and they let us know that they were closing the Denver office. So there were, I think, 60 of us that worked in the office, and they were giving us opportunity to transfer to Chicago. And at the time, my kids were small, and I was not going to uproot them from Denver to go to Chicago. That just wasn't happening. And one of my colleagues, she was building a home with my first employer in the industry. So we started talking, and I was like, I would love doing that. That would be so much fun to work in a model home and help people build their homes. And I've always been the type of person that likes to help other people. And so anyway, passed my resume along, and she knew 2 different builders. I interviewed with both, got the job right away with one. But the one that I really wanted, it took 4 months. They really vet you in that process. And they let us know in like September that they were going to lay us all off on January 31st. So we had some time. But yeah, like the skills were super transferable. Being able to have the conversations that I had with students really aligned well, a lot like what Joy said, like it transferred over very easily, the skill set. And yeah, I started selling homes for a builder, and it's been my passion ever since.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think for me, once I was in school for speech therapy, I also changed my major only twice because I refused to change it again, even though I was a junior and I knew this was not really starting to align. But I just wanted the paper at this point. So I was working at Canvas. I just needed a job while I was in school, and I started falling in love with finances and the ability to help people save in a lot of ways just by giving them that educational piece to it. You just never know. People don't ask questions about their rates or ask questions about other products that could help them financially, and I just really found it rewarding to do that. But, with financial institutions, you usually start working your way up the food chain because you just want to, start making more money. And I ended up in management, and it just wasn't really my calling. I just felt like I got taken out of the part that I enjoyed, which was helping people do different things with finances. So I got into lending because I was able to, still grow income-wise, have more control over my schedule, not be restricted to being somewhere for long periods of time, and also get back into the saving portion where you're really changing someone's life and their generation's lives by getting into a home. And so I found this really rewarding to find a spot in finances that actually suits and fits all of the bubbles, even though it can be stressful. But I also thrive on stress sometimes. There's a balance to it. Sometimes I don't think it's that good for me, but we're trying to find the good sweet spot in between. So that's kind of how I ended up here as well. So what does your day-to-day look like in your position? We'll start on this side. So Misty.
So generally, it really varies day to day. That's the beauty of it. That's what makes it exciting. Some days you may come into someone being there waiting for you to unlock the door and answer questions. The next day I might be having a CE course, which is a continuing education course for real estate agents, and inviting them in to see the product and what we have to offer. The next day it could be like just, a million people coming through and asking questions. And so every day is a little different. At the end of the day, it's really about meeting people, building the relationships, and really investing and understanding what you're offering. So spending a lot of time in a construction zone, taking pictures, emailing photos to clients that might be out of state, like this is the progress of your home, a lot of following up, giving weekly updates, just really kind of educating people on what the build process looks like. Most people have never built before, so it's really fun because I get to, use some education, but I also get to use my sales skills and offer them different options and help them customize and build their dream home. So really it's a new adventure every day, and that's what really makes it exciting.
Nice. Michaela here. So my days, similar to Misty, vary, and I control my own schedule. So it's pretty flexible. There's a lot of emails to respond to, a lot of phone calls to respond to. Generally, I'm in meetings on and off throughout the day, and those meetings vary a lot. I mean, I might be helping a client put together a financial plan and understand if they're meeting their retirement goals or some of their shorter or medium-term goals. We might be talking about tax strategy, talking specifically about investments and doing a full portfolio review, it can look like a lot of things. I've even taken, I'll do fun things with my clients. I love eating, so I'll take, excuse to go to a nice restaurant in Cherry Creek where I work. I'll take my clients to lunch, or I even, I'll take my clients to get their, this isn't a common thing, but I've taken clients to get their star charts read before. And I would love to go on some trips with clients to adopt some homeless animals. So I try to bring my personality into the job as well. And it's technically an 8 to 5, but with the flexibility, I'm able to really take control of my schedule and spend my time doing the things I enjoy.
That's awesome. So in real estate, it's funny, there's this misconception that, you can make your own schedule, and that's great. And it's like, well, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, though, because, you need to maximize your time. And sometimes you're working 9 o'clock to get an offer in, or, it's just, it can vary. And when I'm not working in my business, I'm working on my business. So in my business is going to be, I'm doing a lot of showings. I work primarily with buyers right now. I would love to get a listing, but right now I'm working with buyers, which I love. A lot of fun adventures out there looking at homes. And then there's the whole, once they decide to make an offer with this market the way it is, you have to act quick. And it's hard to, light a fire and under your buyer basically to be like, you need to know in 15 minutes that you want to buy this house, which is hard. But you have to act quick, and then you have to communicate with the listing agent to figure out what's important to the seller, and then you have to bring in those negotiation skills and really build that rapport with the listing agent. So that's kind of what that looks like when I'm working in my business. And then when I'm on my business, actually just wrapped up reading Atomic Habits. I don't know if anyone's read that. Mm-hmm. So good. And I'm trying to work on structuring my day, down to 15, 20-minute increments almost. So it's I wake up at 6. Between 6 and 8, it's meditation, journal. I'm writing 2 handwritten notes a day to a client outreach. And then I'm lining up who I'm going to talk to and contact that day, clients and people in my sphere. And then for the rest of the day, it's just being reactive. So proactive for the first 2 hours, and then reacting to whatever, comes my way throughout the day. And that's responding to emails, that's setting up showings, and just talking to clients and being there for them. So
I know a funny acronym around beer around that, and it's called IPA, Income Producing Activities.
Yes.
So that's what that reminds me of.
Totally.
And so, since we're talking about beer, that resonated with me. I went to a networking event recently, and they talked about that, and I was like, IPA, I can remember that. Yeah. If it's not something that could produce income eventually, I don't need to be doing it.
Yeah.
So something, if there's an email that can wait, it can wait, you know? So that's very smart.
Yeah. I used to wake up and just go right into emails. And I'm like, this isn't a good habit to have. It's not really producing income.
Right. Yeah. I started checking email at 10 and 2.
Oh, I batch email.
Batch email. Yeah. 10 and 2. That way, if something's super urgent, they'll call you.
Yep.
If not, the email can wait till 10 a.m. or 2 p.m., depending on when it came in.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, it is, because I will get wrapped up in email and just
Same.
Too.
It's an hour later, and I'm like, what did I do today?
Yeah, and then you're reading an article about real estate, and then you're just down a spiral.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like silencing your email so that it doesn't pop up on your screen, because I will get so distracted. I'll be in the middle of putting together a super detailed financial plan, and then I'll see the email pop up, and then it's just down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, squirrel.
Yeah. That's all my problem right now. I definitely wake up, roll over, and look at emails. And so I have a hard time not responding. I think I'm just a very reactive person. Yeah. And so, I'm working on structuring my day a little bit better, too. I think I just have this uncontrollable desire to respond. Mm-hmm. And that can be good if that's just what works for you, but is it, in those times that it's affecting what you're doing in the moment, that's when I've had to get a little bit more strict with myself, that if I'm working on something, I'm putting in an application, I'm fine-tuning their application, and someone emails me, I need to finish the task at hand. So my day is similar where I have a free schedule. I'm not dedicated to being somewhere from a certain time to a certain time. And I think, I'm trying to find blocking is going to be important. As I think, like, as you have, like, certain things you know that need to come in and get done that day. But for me, I spend a lot of time with educational pieces. So what can I learn that's new today in our field? I listen to a lot of podcasts to hear, especially with the volatile market like we have right now, where people are in a different situation financially than they've ever been, and especially trying to buy. What different ways can we think outside the box? What are other people doing in our field that are giving them an edge to help the people in the community? And so I've definitely leaned into the education piece again, while things are kind of slow and waiting for contracts to come in and waiting for people. Most of my days, emails, pre-approvals, fine-tuning applications, getting documents, working with lenders, going over conditions, things like that. But there's also a lot of free time that gets put in there when you're not doing those things. So, I think that's trying to find the rest of your productivity. So, I was going to say, what do you think is the most important part of your role in someone's financial experience? So, be it having a real estate agent in your process, having a financial advisor after you buy a house or before you buy a house, going into new builds and deciding that that's the better option than trying to wait for inventory to come back together. What do you think why your role is so important in these financial transactions that we do? I'm going to start with Michaela. Yeah,
sure. I think that in the years of doing what I do, I've run into a lot of people who have no awareness about where they stand or education around finances, financial planning, investing, both in the market but also in a home. And I think that it's important to have a partner, a financial planner, through really any big life decisions like that, because otherwise I think you're just kind of making decisions hoping for the best without actually understanding how it fits in with your long-term goals. And too often I think when people don't have a financial advisor that they can really depend on and trust, when they're 50, 60, 65 and trying to retire, they might not have put themselves in the best situation possible just because of lack of education and lack of knowledge around where they stand and what makes sense for their situation.
Amazing. Yeah. Joy?
To piggyback off her, I could not agree more. Just the lack of education is, I don't remember being in school. I mean, I'm 33. I remember being in high school. Nobody talked about finances. My second job was at Wells Fargo, and I was a lead teller. And that's where I learned about finances. But most of the people I remember, I'll never forget, came in, they didn't know, that their credit card interest rate was at 23%. You're carrying a $20,000 balance, that's where a financial advisor kind of comes in also. But even before then, it's I wish we could get ahead of even before they get to the real estate agent and the financial advisor, and the lender. It's where does that piece come in? So it's I think my role is to empower my clients with the knowledge. It's there. And sometimes people do have the right answers and they know what they need and they want. It's just somebody asking the right questions to guide them to what's right for them. My role is not to tell, a buyer or a seller what they need and what is right or wrong. I'm going to say these are the resources, these are the tools, and this is what you need to make a decision. And I leave it at that. Because I'm looking at your best interest at the end of the day. We have a fiduciary duty to look out for your best interest, regardless if I get a sale or not. So,
yeah. Misty?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Most people that come in to see me have never built a home before. They know nothing about the process. They have a lot of misconceptions. So, I think we can all agree that it's education and truly taking the time and realizing that they may only do this once in their life. I do this every day. And so approaching it from a place of understanding, empathy, and asking all the right questions, truly to understand what their scenario looks like and how I can be of a support. I've been in sales for over 20 years, but I have never approached it from the angle of how to get a sale. It's always been from the angle of how can I help somebody solve problems. And so in my role, I really try to focus on solving problems. Lifestyle changes, people have babies, they get divorced, sick parents move in. There's just so many reasons why someone would want to build a home or have a home. And so really, like in my role, I really focus on the education piece and give them options. And whether the builder I'm with is the right builder or not, I will tell them, listen, your budget is $450. I can only get you something at $600. There's a builder a mile away. Go see them. They have things in your price point. And I believe in karma. I believe that will come back tenfold, right? Because I'm still helping them at the end of the day. I'm not getting the sale, and that's okay, because they may refer their friends or family, like, she was honest with me. Go see her. So.
Oh my God, that's such a good point. I mean, I think there's so many people in fields like ours that are so focused on bottom line, the sale that's in front of them. Mm-hmm. And what I've found, and thankfully I work for a firm that's really the culture, is that if you do the right thing every single time, the sales will come. It might not be with that specific person, but gosh, I have a real estate agent that I haven't worked with yet. And just from talking with her over the last 2 years, when I sell my home, I will absolutely go to her. When I have a client looking for an agent, I will absolutely refer them, because every conversation we've had, I could tell that she had my best interest at heart. She didn't say, okay, yeah, when you're thinking about selling because of these things, okay, let's get ready and go. She was like a therapist to me and made sure it was what I really wanted to do deep down. So I love that.
It's important.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think, a lot of the times being a lender, they come to you and they want you to make the numbers work and make it magically come to the closing table. And, there's a lot of mistrust with finances. And I think, even you coming and approaching a lender to get pre-approved, there's still this idea that I have to be embarrassed or I have to hide what is going on with my finances. And I think, for me, I always come with it. I have seen credit from way high to really, really low. And I'm not going to judge you for that. I'm going to want to see how we can get you where you want to be, and that we're supposed to be helping you. And if it isn't our program, if it isn't where we sit today, we can help you get there with either another program that exists, or maybe we need to give you outsource to, credit repair, a financial advisor, somebody else who can get those ducks in a row so that you can come back here and I can absolutely seamlessly say we can get where we want to go. And I also agree, you sometimes have to give up deals, but at the end of the day, for me, I would rather see you in a home and you either come back and you work with me to refinance that home or get the next home when you're in a different financial situation, or you have a friend that wasn't already in a different financial situation, but you really loved working with me and we just couldn't make it work together, but that you ended up in a home. And that's the most important thing. That's what we're working towards. Or you ended up in the right product and you're able to retire at a certain age that you want to be at. So my personal experience working with Michaela already, she's my advisor, that, she made me feel comfortable. And she, even though maybe I wasn't normally a client that she might work with, that she still found ways to help me and get me out of the situation, because I came from one where I wasn't feeling very trusting and I felt like I didn't understand what I was put into, and that I feel secure that I can reach those goals by just communicating with her. And same thing for you guys. Like if I was to build a home or have you as my agent, I know you have your best interest at heart. So, I think it's really important.
Well, there's mistrust in our fields for a reason, because there's people that do the wrong thing, and it's always so refreshing to speak with women like you who, every single one of you at the beginning said, I wanted to make a difference. It was important for me to make a difference. It was important for me to help people. And, we can change that perception, if enough of us join these industries and do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one question I wanted to ask is if you are a homeowner, which I think most of us are, that what was that process like for you? And if you had anything you wanted to change about it that could be educational for people listening. Joy, go ahead.
So I bought, my husband and I bought a home in 2019, and I loved our real estate agent. She was actually referred to us by my mother-in-law, so she was like a family friend. And she just was very like natural and not pushy, and I just felt like we were hanging out with our friend, going to see houses, and it was just a natural process. And we found a home in Erie, and it was a great experience. But I have to say, I kind of took a back seat on the details during that transaction. This was before I was in real estate. And I don't think I knew like all of the right like questions to ask. So I kind of just let my husband take the reins. I did. So going back, if I were to change one thing, I wish I would have invested myself a little bit more in that process. He was going to the inspection. He was talking to the lender. Like he was just more of that like point of contact. And I'm like, dang, I wish I like in 2019, like I wish I would have had all the information, asked the right questions, and just like stepped up a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Michaela?
I do own my own home, and I've actually owned 2 different homes, and I would say in both cases I worked with an agent that I wish I wouldn't have worked with. My most recent home purchase was I worked with this, and she's one of like literally the top producers here in Colorado. And I knew her just personally, and she was kind of advertising herself on Facebook constantly. And I said, well, I'll reach out to her. And I thought everything went well. I mean, there was a couple of red flags along the way where she just wasn't able to answer my questions or get answers to my questions, whereas my sister's actually a real estate appraiser. And I called her to say, hey, what about this specific thing? You know, my agent is saying she doesn't really know anything about that. And my sister's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, who is this person? And meanwhile, she's getting recognized in Vanity Fair and doing so incredibly well in her role. And I actually, she worked both sides of the transaction. And at the end of the day, I ended up sort of screwed with this property that has all of these issues. I've had to get an entire ceiling replaced from leakage from the roof. The HOA was a mess. So I don't know. Maybe I would have still ended up in the same property had I worked with someone else. But it was really clear hindsight that I was just a number and she was just trying to get it done as fast as possible versus, I mean, the agent that I've been talking to for 2 years now, I've wanted to sell multiple times because of all the stuff that's going on. And she's talked me out of it just by asking me questions and really trying to get to the heart of my goals. So I think that going back and when I purchase a home in the future, I'm going to be a lot more conscious about who I trust and who I work with. And just because somebody's like a top producer and recognized and good at speaking and all that doesn't mean that they really care about what matters to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've bought 3 homes, and the first 2 were not great. So the first one, I was 23. I was young. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know. And you know, here's a good example. The agent knew we were first-time buyers, didn't even tell us anything about earnest money. So the day we were going to write the contract, she's like, okay, and a check for your earnest money. And we're like, what's that? And so here we are, you know, like finding out at that time that we needed to submit earnest money check, and we didn't have the money. Like, so had to like borrow some money from father-in-law, and it was a CHAFA loan as we were first time, we were young, you know, and didn't explain how CHAFA worked, didn't explain that we probably could have gotten a better interest rate had we not used that program, just a lot of stuff. But she knew that we didn't have a lot of cash flow, and so we ended up getting that home. And then the second home that we purchased, we were moving from Pueblo West back to Denver, where I'm from, and we were referred to this agent. So we were like, okay, we'll work with her. And she was fine through the process. And one thing that I was really disappointed with is she had told us, I've got a closing gift for you. I'll bring it by. She never brought it by. We wouldn't have probably even known, or thought much about it had she not said that. But we were just a transaction to her. So, in that particular home, we were on an interest-only loan. This was in 2006. Oh, no. Interest-only ARM. Okay, 5-year interest-only ARM. So we're at like 8.6% interest on the first loan, or 6.8 on the first loan, 8.6 on the second loan. We were in that home, and then the market crashed in 2000 and what was it, 8, 9, mm-hmm. And the home, we bought it for like $197, but because we weren't paying any interest, it was now worth $145. Mm-hmm. So we were in this crazy upside down situation. Obviously, we didn't lose money because we didn't sell. And then when we did sell, we made money, and that was fine, and purchased the home that we have now. That was a good transaction. By then, I was smarter. I knew what kinds of questions to be asking the lender. We had a really great loan product. It was a 30-year fixed. We weren't playing around with these ARMs anymore. But these are all things that nobody took the time to explain to us. We were buying too much house the second time. We were overextended is what it was. To qualify, we had to have interest only. Had our lender been more forthcoming with us, instead of trying to make the sale, he could have said, hey, listen, like truly for affordability reasons, you should be at this price point. We could have better prepared ourselves. So, it goes back to education and really trying to help people understand like what is in their best interest above and beyond what's in your best interest.
No, absolutely. So for me, I actually had started to try to buy in 2020. I have a Live Laugh, a realtor who I love. So, she's great. She makes you feel like family. I don't have any complaints there. Mine was more with the lending side of things, and I think that's why I ended up where I'm at. Because originally I tried to get my loan with Canvas, but with regular financial institutions, they have their products, and you either fit in the product or you don't. Whereas, brokers, you work with so many different lenders that have so many different products that you're not necessarily going to have to fit into the products that are offered. So I was under contract on a home, and I didn't know that PMI could reject you because you have to go through PMI underwriting. And for people who don't know, that's mortgage insurance. And so if you don't put 20% down, you have mortgage insurance. And so I lost the home, and it was really frustrating. And, in 2020, we weren't in this volatile situation with the market. I was getting way more house. But I realized, looking back, I would have been overextended because in going into this career and how unstable it is, I might have been more stressed out about my mortgage payment. So then 2021 came around, and the market had increased and everything, but I decided to change, and I went with my family broker. And I was able to do CHAFA instead, just to save some cash flow in case there was any issues, anything. I had to furnish a new place. I didn't want to use all of the stuff I had in my apartment. And so I just was given more options. I think the only things that I didn't like was I didn't feel like my lender sometimes wanted to run these scenarios with me because I was in such a tight budget. And so I couldn't, not every house was going to work. And, for me, I was lucky enough to be in numbers that I could run a lot of these situations myself because I just knew how it worked. But, for somebody who doesn't, and they're not knowing how to run these calculators and everything, you are asking your lender to run a lot of different scenarios just because, with rates constantly increasing, you're not locked in. You might afford the house one day, you might not afford the house the next day. So, and I think that was my only problem there. I also think understanding and reading the inspection a little bit closer. Not you don't really understand a lot of what's being said on it because you're not, I don't know about a home. I don't fix stuff. That's like, I'm used to maintenance coming in and just, change the filter or do what you got to do. I was like, I don't know what the water heater needs to be at. I don't know what the roof shingles, how many shingles it needs. I don't know any of that stuff. So I think now if I went into it, I would read the inspection a lot closer. I would ask more questions to make sure that I can, while I'm still in that transaction, I can ask the seller and put it back on them for certain things. We did, but there were some things that came loose because the inspector didn't decide to go up all the way and check the water heater. He came back down and was like, we couldn't get in there. And I was like, isn't this your job? Like, I was like, what do you mean?
Not perfect.
Yeah,
we'll just skip it.
Yeah, like, it looks old. I don't know what to tell you. Good luck. So, yeah, exactly. So, I think for me, that was the same thing, being a little bit more involved. Now, of course, I'm being in this industry. I'm going to be way involved. Yeah, you're going to be in those numbers. I'm going to be in there every second of the way. But, that was kind of my experience as well. And, it's hard to hear for people that they're not being transparent. I actually offer a lot of the times if I'm going to lose a client to somebody else, I want them to send me the loan estimate. Because if you're offering something that sounds a little out of the norm, because all of us have the same products, we have the same things. So, sometimes it is that they just have different finances and funding from their backers to offer those things. But sometimes they're not. They're sneaking stuff in there that you don't know about. So I always ask my clients to send me their loan estimate from their new person because just to make sure that I'm looking over it and they're being very transparent about what they're getting so that you don't end up in an interest only, you don't end up in an ARM that you don't understand, you don't end up with paying 1.5 points, which is like almost a lot of money that you could end up paying to somebody. So I think that's awesome that we all can kind of give more insight going into those next transactions that we have as homeowners. So what are some misconceived notions about your role? Like what are things that people constantly will tell you, and you're just like, no, that's not how this works. So go ahead, Joy.
So I primarily work by referral. So the people that I work with already find value in what I do, luckily. But I think when I came into this, I learned really quick the preconceived notion and stereotypes around real estate is that, going back to what we said earlier, is that I'm here for the sale and that a lot of real estate agents have what we call commission breath, which is they're not looking out for your best interest and they're just going to say what they need to get the sale and get it done and get it through. And overstepping sometimes to in areas that they shouldn't, like giving financial advisor kind of advice or lending advice. That's where I'm kind of like, nope, here's my people, and like they take care of that. But I think also glorified Uber drivers. That's what we do. And people don't understand all the other stuff we do behind the scenes. It's not just driving you to showings and opening the door for you. And if you have a real estate agent that's just doing that, then that's a red flag. They should be digging deeper. What are they doing at the showing? Are they just chatting and just talking your ear off? Or are they asking you thought-provoking questions? Like, oh, do you know that this electric system is from 1971 and that might be an issue on your inspection report? I'm not an inspector, but these are things that you should be aware of. Do you really not want a main bathroom on the main floor? Is that something that you would be okay with? Those kinds of questions. Mm-hmm. So that's just that process. And then it's getting you under contract. And there's 200 checklist items I could probably go through of what I have to do just to get you to the closing table. And then after that, they should be taking care of you post-transaction. Hey, did you get your air ducts cleaned out? Hey, spring maintenance. Hey, fall maintenance. Calling you, hey, how are you doing? Checking up and really being invested in you as a client and a friend at that point. Clients are my friends too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Michaela?
Well, I think there's a few, and we touched on it a little bit. I mean, I think that financial advisors sort of have a bad reputation, but I think that it's for a reason. It's because many financial advisors for a long time and still today didn't have their clients' best interest at heart, and they maybe sold them things that they didn't know what they were. They didn't know what they were paying. There was no transparency. So I think that, historical events have caused people like myself to have a bad reputation. So I've certainly had, started working with new clients that are just suspicious and unwilling to fully trust and believe what I'm telling them. But I get why that is. And then another, I guess, misconception is that financial advising is still today what it was, 20 years ago. And there's plenty of clients who have called me up and tried to get a hot stock tip, kind of like, the broker, and I guess there's still brokers that do this, but it's few and far between. It's just a broker calling you and saying, hey, check out this stock, let's buy some, and then they're making a big commission on it. I don't work on commissions. There's not a lot of value to me just blanket giving a client a hot stock tip when really I'm not a portfolio manager, I'm not a stock analyst, I'm a relationship manager, I'm a financial planner. And so I think that sometimes clients think that the value lies elsewhere and that I'm not valuable to them if I'm not just going to give them a hot stock tip. So I think those are the two big ones.
What about you, Misty?
The biggest misconception is that I'm a real estate agent.
Yep.
So everybody always assumes that I have a real estate license. And Colorado is one of the few states where you do not have to have a license to sell new homes. Most builders will ask you to put your license in an inactive status because it can be a conflict of interest. Let's say my company is spending a lot of money on marketing to bring you into their model home, and I don't have something there to sell you. So if I were to turn around and be like, oh, I'll take you out, that's essentially stealing from the company because they paid for the lead. They paid for your, something to have brought you in. So that's the biggest misconception. The other is that I think people will see signs that say starting from 450, right? Well, yes, that is the base home that starts at 450. But if you want the quartz countertops and you want to add the third car garage and you want to landscape the backyard and certain things like that, those things add up. So 450 quickly turns into 550. So it's just some of those things. It all goes back to education. People don't understand exactly what to expect when they walk in the door. So that's our job to set those expectations, because the more expectations you can set up front, then the less surprises along the way, and nobody likes surprises. So it's just really taking the time to explain the process, explain what they're in for, explain whether or not that is the best option for them based on what they're trying to do. So again, it's all that education. But yeah, definitely not a real estate agent. So
do you like real estate agents? From a new build perspective?
So from a new build perspective, it can be very split, okay? Mm-hmm. So I've worked with some fantastic agents where they truly want to work with you as a team. What's in the best interest of the client? And they understand that they're kind of in my territory now, and I'm the product expert, and I will take care of my client because that is what we do. We're measured on, customer satisfaction and things like that too. Then there's the real estate agent that comes in and they feel like they have to earn their paycheck. And so they tend to puff their chest a little bit more, and they're a little more combative with the salesperson at the model home. And all that does is it creates conflict in that relationship. And so that they're trying to show their value to the client so that they still can earn their commission, which they're getting paid regardless. If they bring the person in, they're not getting cut out of the deal. But that's another misconception. Agents sometimes have builder's not going to pay me if I'm not on the first appointment or whatever. Call, pre-register your client. You'll be fine. You don't have to be there, or give them your business cards, have them tell us they're working with you. So I would say that those are the two biggest misconceptions, is that I'm an agent, and then working with agents, I would say it's a 50-50, truly. There's some that are fantastic, you'd love to work with. If there's a problem, you call the agent, you problem solve together. and the client knows nothing about it. Okay, then there's the other agent that's like, I was just out there, and they get the client's feathers ruffled. And instead of allowing you the opportunity to say, yes, we know the wrong door was put in, it's on order, whatever, like, let's not freak out, like, they'll get their client freaked out, and it just becomes a difficult process for everybody. So to answer your question, honestly.
That was really good information.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Yes.
I just went through a new build transaction, so
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that.
Does your role have any contact with the lender as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Lots of contact with the lender. So a lot of new builds will have preferred lenders. And what those are is those are lenders that over time have worked with that builder multiple times, and they understand the build process in and out. So they've been kind of vetted because of their track record, and they've done a good job. Now, in today's market, you find that most clients already have a lender because they started in the resale side. They got frustrated, and then they're like, okay, now let's go to new build. So they've already built relationships with lenders. So when you're working with an outside lender, it is imperative to be way more in contact with them than when with your own preferred lender. The reason being is they don't know your process the way that your preferred lender does. So you're educating them along the way. I had a lender last night at a networking event ask me like, well, where in the process should I be ordering the appraisal? And I was like, that's a great question. This is a 10-step process of building the home. Typically, you're going to order the appraisal around step 9. Step 9 is when carpet is going in, when appliances are starting to go in. The biggest frustration of real estate appraisers on new builds is they show up and the home is not ready. It's not ready, and they have to come back out again. Like, that wastes everyone's time. They're not getting paid anymore. They'll get there and they're like, where are the appliances? Like, really? I cannot show that this, like, I can't give the home the value. It's going to be like a pending appraisal. So it's good to keep the lender updated. The last builder I was with, they were very production. We had to have weekly calls with the lender. So we would call the lender, give them an update, like, where are you guys at? Has it gone to underwriting yet? Like, what are you missing from the client? And we would work as a team to try to get those documents over or whatever was needed. So, yes, to answer your question.
That's good to know.
Definitely, yeah. And it can be a really great gig if you are able to get in with a builder as a preferred lender. But typically they're very selective on who they choose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the misconceptions in lending that the rate, I think, is a lot of the time the misconception. You can't always lock it in when you're having these preliminary conversations, and people will send out quotes and they'll say, this is what you're quoted at and everything. This just and it's more to see the fees that are going into this. It's more to see what your payment's going to look like if you're at this exact situation. But, you're not locking it in until you have a contract. Now, with the climate we're in, they've actually changed that, and you're allowed to lock and shop now if it's beneficial, and so you can lock a rate early on and go out and shop for a home. Even in new builds, same thing. You can lock way ahead of time, just if you're in a volatile rate market where things are just changing so often. But in normal circumstances, you don't lock until the house is under contract, and then you put in the product and you see where you're at. And if you gave somebody a quote and now we're like 0.5% higher, it gives this bad feeling for the client, and even for the realtor too, because there's that trust that's being built in those relationships about, okay, they qualified for this much, especially if they got pushed out of their qualification. And I think it's really important to constantly be up to date with your your lender in a climate like this, to make sure that if we were kind of pushing the envelope originally and rates skyrocket in 6 months, can they still qualify for that amount of house? Is this still a payment that they're okay with if they're still trying to get that amount of house? And go mortgage poor, or house poor as we call it too. So I think that's a big misconception. I also think, the process in getting your letter, we need to see documentation. We need to see your pay stubs. stubs. We need to see, your 1099. We need to see those things, because I can't give you a letter saying that I've reviewed this and you go out and you buy a house and I haven't vetted you. I haven't vetted what you're actually telling me, because, the worst thing, and this has happened to me, you get all the way through it and the client was not forthcoming with all of their information. Even though you talked about it, you went over it, and then now you're in this verifying situation and it's not what it was said. And now you've messed up the relationship with the selling agent. You've put clients that were selling their home in a bad situation. For new builds, they've built this whole house and this is where we were at, and now we can't close on this. And they're scrambling to find a new person to buy this house that was customized for somebody else.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because during COVID, I had a home that before they went to design center, they were pre-qualified for $900,000. Okay. So they're pre-qualified for $900,000. They can pretty much build whatever. And the home, they ended up getting, the end of the contract was $1.2 million. Ooh. So that's significant. That's $300,000 difference. They're putting like $21,000 toilets in their house and just crazy stuff, right? So, but when COVID hit, some of these bigger, jumbo products were pulled off the market. So, the Bank of America's that, or the Chase and some of the jumbo stuff. So then my clients were scrambling like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And I'm like, you guys overextended yourselves. You knew you had a pre-qual to 900 and there were still some products that could get them. But they ended up having, and then when the appraisal came in, it came in at 1.1 million. So it was 100,000 short. They only had so much cash. So they essentially ended up having to switch lenders so that they could get a new appraisal. They originally were with the preferred lender. They left the preferred lender, went with a different lender. Then that happened. It was just a mess. Fortunate for them, the preferred lender was able to get it done. It wasn't the original terms that they thought they would be able to get, but at least they didn't have to walk away from this $1.2 million custom home that they built. Yeah. So it's just, those are the things, if you're working with a good lender, they'll help you. And as a new home sales consultant, I was constantly having conversations with them while they were at the design center. You guys, you told me this is where you want it to be. What are you going to do if, and they're like, we've got it. Well, guess what? They didn't have it.
Did they explain the toilet thing though? What's
yes,
the deal?
Self-cleaning. So apparently,
was there a bidet?
Yes, there's a bidet. It glows in the dark at night.
Oh my gosh.
It's self-cleaning.
Wow.
Because she's like, I can't do toilets. That's the one. So they were $7,000 each, and they had 3 of them in the house. So $21,000 for these toilets. Great.
Gosh.
It almost cost them the home, right? So, and once something like that's installed, it's not getting taken out. Just,
and nobody wants to buy your used.
Right. Exactly. No one wants to buy, even if you've never even used it, it's used,
So the deal almost went to crap because of toilets.
Yes.
She should just advising. Let's get some baby wipes. Yeah, keep them on the back of the toilet.
Yes. Thank you. How much? And why do you need it to glow in the dark? Turn the light on.
No, that's a fair. Yeah, that's just taking it a bit far.
The seat was heated. It had the bidet.
Wow, we're doing
sounds kind of nice.
Self-clean.
Going to be in just the master. We didn't need 3. I don't think everybody needs this experience,
yes.
but just the ones that are really complaining about it.
Well, the issue is she didn't want to clean toilets, so that's why they.
Me either, but
hire a maid.
Right.
I feel like it'd be cheaper.
You could go years of a maid.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Yeah, so I definitely think just everybody in the transaction staying, having conversations. I think even on the financial advising side, if they're going to be liquidating things in their financial portfolio, I think also that's a good time to go back and have that conversation. You just gave us the statements and say, okay, this is how it works. I was like, I advise you to always go back, and even if it's us having a conversation with them, to make sure this is going to be a good idea. Because, we want you to buy the house. We want you to have the wealth. We want you to do these things. But if you're liquidating things, maybe you don't understand what you're trying to do. And maybe that's not an option, or it requires you to do a loan instead of doing where you can just just take out the money and everything like that. So,
well, and then the tax implications too, right? I mean, if you're liquidating something, it's like 30% tax. Doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think the other thing is they might qualify for something that if you really look at their whole financial picture and their long-term goals, just because they qualified doesn't mean that it actually fits in with their financial picture. So I think that just making sure that your entire team of professionals, that you're talking to all of the experts, and even if it's, I mean, I've got Schwab has basically a partnership with the loan company, and I like to be on all of those calls, you know, if I refer my client over to make sure that everything's going to fit together. They're going to have the liquidity that they need going forward when they're putting X dollars into a home. So I think when we've talked so much, the theme is education, right? Mm-hmm. And I think really raising awareness with our clients about their situations, because I think that there is such a lack of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So now this is the big question. So what has your experience been like as a woman in your field? Let's start with Misty.
You know, honestly, I think you tend to see a few more women in new builds than you do men. I think women tend to be very successful in the role if they can listen and ask the right questions, which I find that women tend to have better listening skills sometimes. Now, that's a little bit blanketed, so it's, you know, but in general, we have a little more empathy. We tend to listen well. And so what I have seen, though, is women will make it to a certain level, and then once they've obtained that level, you don't see a lot of women in the C level, the executive level. You might see women as VPs, but that's kind of it. And that's speaking from 3 different builders. And I think as women, you know, I don't know if you've all read Lean In or not. Oh, you need to read it. Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In. It talks about women as leaders in organizations and how we can support other women, and how, you know, when you get asked to sit at the table, you sit at the table. Great book. There's a lot of Lean In circles out there. But we tend to sometimes self-sabotage. And, you know, when we have successes, sometimes do the whole imposter syndrome. Like, we thank everyone else for supporting us, even though we earned that. Mm-hmm. And so I find that in this industry, women will make it, you know, up there, but you don't see a lot of CEO, CFO, CIO, CCO, none of that, COOs. Very rarely will you find that they're women. You'll see VPs of sales, VP of HR, VP of this or that, but that's kind of the extent. This can be a very lucrative career. You know, there's the national average, this is countrywide, in new home sales is $150,000 a year. In markets like Colorado, can be much more than that. Mm-hmm. So this could be a really lucrative career. The challenge is you typically work every weekend and all holidays. So there does come some sacrifice, especially if you've got a family or other commitments that on weekends. But I have seen women to be very successful in this role. And in the industry overall in new home sales, I guess the growth could be opportunities for more of those C-level positions.
Yeah. Michaela?
Well, the financial industry is very male-dominated. I think that the industry as a whole, but specifically the company I work for, takes diversity very, very seriously, and they're very aware that it's a male-dominated industry, and also like an old white male-dominated industry. So I think they really value diversity just across the board. And, you know, for me, I think I had more opportunities being a woman. And my personality, I'm very competitive and motivated, and I never wanted to be recognized. I never wanted to get a position just because of being a woman. So I pushed myself. I was so competitive. I always wanted to beat all the guys at everything, and I did. I was first, in all the metrics for my group. And, going into working from the call center to a retail office, again, I was one of the only women at the office, so constantly surrounded by men. And today, I'm a little bit more female-oriented at my office, which has been really, really nice. And my boss, actually, he took over another office, and there was some sexual harassment going on, and he got rid of the person immediately, and it was really cool to see. And then I've had many opportunities with clients who pull up my office and they see that there's only 2 female financial advisors, and they wanted to work with a female specifically because they did, just like Misty was saying, feel like females are better listeners and have more empathy. And I think it's been really great being a female in this industry. And, you talked about executives and C-suite at Schwab. We have a lot of women executives. I don't think we've ever had a woman CEO. That would be really, really cool to see. But overall, it's been really great being a woman in this industry.
That's amazing.
Real estate's kind of like women are dominating right now, which is awesome. So I feel like I'm entering real estate in a prime time right now. I think NAR, the National Association of Realtors, put out a statistic. I think it's 70% are like women now. So it's just great to be in that space. I also hang my license and work with a brokerage that is woman owned. And she's the owner of Live Laugh Denver Real Estate Group. She's a powerhouse. And I look up to her a lot, and she gives us so many resources, and she keeps it real all the time, and she just lets us be our authentic self. And we just went through this coaching program, and I don't know if any of you have heard of DISC, personality test.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did it, and I'm kind of on these put me in a box and this is my personality type, but it's kind of insightful. And I came out to be dominant. Mm-hmm. So I'm very I can be straightforward. And I think there's been a part of me that's always kind of tried to diminish that a little bit. And I feel like here I'm kind of encouraged to lean into it and cultivate it and use it to my advantage to grow my business and myself. And I'm just in this really cool space right now of growing myself also, and being a woman and just embracing that. I think in my space in real estate specifically, though, where we have a lot of opportunities in the commercial space, that's still really male dominated. And I think that's a very competitive, egotistical kind of game and environment. And I think women just haven't got into it. But I think once we do, maybe that will change things as well. So
it's a boys' club.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
So for me, I'm the money. So I feel that I get undermined or questioned of, do I really know what I'm talking about? And I think I've been blessed that my personality and my ability to talk to people of all backgrounds, that as soon as they sit with me, people are very impressed with my knowledge base, my ability to take in information. And I mean, even in my relationship with my dad, or even other men, they are like, wow, that's a good idea. Or wow, I never thought about it this way. Or, and they're impressed with my knowledge base. And it's almost frustrating because it's they immediately don't want to take your advice. I've had, clients come and they want to go with someone who's a man because all of a sudden a woman is telling you kind of what needs to be done with your finances. And I'm like, well, the finances are black and white. I'm going to be on. The numbers are the numbers. I can't change the numbers. You can change them by doing this, this, and this. But right now in this moment, this is what the numbers are. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to diminish your stance or diminish what you've accomplished or diminish your knowledge base, but this is my expertise. And I think I've really had to hone in on that and be more in a confident, like, space to say, hold on, like, I know what I'm talking about. But I'm also someone who doesn't mind asking for help. You know, I don't think that anybody, either you're the strongest and you know everything that's been in this field, but there are things that come out every single day that change. And I'm constantly, being someone who's new, telling people that there's these new things that are going on, or this is a new way to think about it because I have a different background and a different way of looking at it. But, you know, being in the money side of the space, it is very male dominated. You know, the lenders and the people that you're going to go to, and there's still this misconception that, you know, women aren't supposed to be on the financial side, you know, and even just when you were talking about your real estate transaction where you bought your house, you know, you kind of let your husband take charge and kind of be more involved in the conversations. And I see that a lot. And, you know, even just a little thing that I do when I'm sending emails and everything, if the wife was put in the conversation, or even if the husband was, but the wife is talking, I address both. Every step of the way. Sometimes if it's a quick question from that individual, I'm going to just answer their question specifically. But if it's a general email I'm sending out, I'll go back in and CC the husband or the wife. I'll go and make sure I say, hi, this, and this, to make sure that you're not feeling like you don't know what's going on. You're not a part of this conversation. Because it's important. I think that it's still very dominated that the man is having the conversation about all of the finances and, you know, or the woman even. And I think it's, if you guys are both on this, or someone is taking responsibility and signing a piece of paper, you both need to know what's going on. Even if it's female, male, whatever it is, the people on the loan need to know what's going on. So for me, I think, I even just thinking about it and listening to you guys, most of my account executives are males. And I think that it would be nice to have a female account executive, not just their assistants, but actual female account executives, just because, you know, they're not very common in this field. And I went to United Wholesale, and there was like all of the account executives have a big meeting, and everybody was walking, and there was a little sprinkle of these amazing women walking throughout, but it was just a lot of men. It was like 180 people, and it was just a lot of men. So I would like to see more space for that. I would also like to see, I'm a very dominant personality. I haven't taken this DISC test, but I can already tell you what's going to happen.
I'll send it to you.
I'm an ID, so I'm influencer dominant. I'm like right on the line, right in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I'm interested to take it,
but I'm going to tell you what to do.
There's a Enneagram. Have you done that?
Yeah.
I'm the challenger. So
I was like,
dominant.
I would like to see. I would like to have to take it and see if maybe it actually tells me something I don't know. But in that situation, you know, I feel like I am a very dominant personality, and I do try to dim that down as well. I feel like it can kind of be off-putting to be. I'm a very straightforward person. I'm also a big advocate, and I have a lot of passion, and it comes off kind of aggressive at times.
Same. Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as if I can't be aggressive because I'm not a man. Like, I have to coast through these situations when I'm having these conversations, and it almost infuriates me more, and I have to take a step back because I do realize we have to work together to get through this transaction, but I'm also really irritated that I'm almost being condescended or you know, just having to tiptoe around it when it's like, no, this is the way it should be, and that's it. Yeah. But, you know, that's just the field. There is a game to it, and I think maybe that's why in commercial spaces we haven't traveled, or there's a CEO situation. It's because when you're at the table, do you get gaslit? Do you get...
Well, and that was part of the whole, you know, that book. It talked about not just as women supporting each other in leadership, but men finding your allies.
Yes.
Finding your allies. And if you've looked at like big meetings, and anytime a woman would try to speak, a man was trying to speak over her, you've got to find those allies that'll say, wait a minute, let's hear what Joy has to say, because I want to hear what she has to say. And it's a coaching method, not just for us as females, but for males. Mm-hmm. And I feel like as women, we are doing a better job of supporting one another, but there's still those that will step on your head when you're drowning rather than reach down and pull you up. So,
absolutely.
You know, we just have to be better too, and continue to build our tribes and really, like, you know, find your circle, build that circle, do what you can to support others.
Well, and I don't know if you guys I kind of believe in toxic masculinity a little bit, and that does exist in our culture. And I think men are also rewarded to be dominant. They're rewarded to be the provider, and there's a lot of pressure on them, I think. And so it's natural for them to step into that role. And women are rewarded to be submissive and to be step back and let the guy step in front.
Right.
So it's just, just doing away with all of the stereotypes of the sexes is not completely, but I just feel the toxic components, just getting away from that would be nice.
And I think that there's been positive changes. I mean, I think it looks a lot different today than 20 or 30 years ago, but we still have a long way to go.
Right.
And, when you were talking, Alexus, about, somebody just kind of a lot of times it is the husband, but it can be either just kind of taking control and then the other person just kind of steps back and lets them handle it. What happens when they don't have their husband there anymore? And I think that's so important to bring both parties into the conversation, and everyone's equally important and should be educated and should know what they're signing and not just kind of be in the background.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I lost my train of thought. Dang it, I was a really good point, too.
That's
well,
the worst.
It's gone.
Take a sip of your beer.
I know.
Bring us back. We might come back.
The strawberry kiwi will bring it back.
Yeah, I know. I was I can't really decide if I like this or not, to be honest.
Really? I like
maybe
it.
if it was in a cup.
I think I want it on ice, too, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe if it was poured out of a spout. I'm not really a can person, but it's, I like the.
I like it. It's not too hoppy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, working at the
Yes.
office, everybody's the IPA team, and I'm just
The only IPA
you're like, give me
income-producing
something
activities.
I was like, "Where's my Princess Yum Yum?" I was like, something like
I love that beer
something
so much.
fruity or a little sour. I don't know, anything like that.
Dry
So,
dock apricot ale.
yeah. Oh yes, I love that one.
Yes,
I was waiting
good.
for us to have that. I mean, that is one of our local ones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no. So I was like, I'll move into the question. See if my thought comes back here soon. So where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? Michaela? Joy was like,
That's a tough question. I mean, I think that I could see myself going in many different directions. I love what I do currently, and I could retire in the role that I'm in. So that could happen, and I would just want to be really, really good, really strong relationships with my clients. I get referrals now, but be in a position where I'm getting even more referrals, and I have just such a high level of trust with everyone that I work with. Or I could see myself kind of going off and doing, staying within financial advising, but going and working for a smaller firm or starting my own firm where I'm able to have a smaller bucket of clients that I can pay more attention to. I mean, I think that the tough thing about my role today is that it's such high volume, and that's really how my compensation is structured. It's different than an advisor at a small firm, and so it's just this constant growing and adding, and I'd love to be able to pay more attention and have a smaller bucket of clients, and I have some clients that I don't like working with. Having instead of 250 clients, having 50 that I absolutely adore, and I know every single one of their family members. So I don't know, but maybe one of those things.
yeah, no, absolutely. What about you? Let's switch it around, Joy. We can go this way.
Yeah. Quality versus quantity, right? Yeah, because then the quality of your life is better when you work with people that you like. And 10 years seems so far away. Could you do 5 years?
Yeah, you can do 5 years.
Cool. So I'm 33, so 5 will be coming on 40. I'm at this weird space right now, aside from work, of am I going to be a mom or not?
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah, and it's everyone I talk to is girl, you better figure it out, because if you're even on the fence, then maybe you're not meant to be a mom. So I get that advice. But then I also get this other advice. It's no, give yourself space, give yourself time, and figure it out. So I'm trying to find that out right now. And therapy's helping. It's expensive, but I highly recommend investing in that, by the way. Side note. But I could see myself maybe being a mom. My husband and I really like to travel. My goal is not to have the most money and the biggest house and all of those things. I see myself maybe, just living a normal life, working with people I really like, running my business the way I want to, and maybe having a small family. And yeah, I just want a simple life, and I want to travel and do what I want to do.
Yeah, well, then I guess that answers your question about the kid.
Yeah, I guess, guys, I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yeah. I think it's a good option. I mean, I think motherhood in this is another topic we can touch on. I'm not a mom yet, but, I think in a workspace, it's always this pending situation because you have to put your, if you're not adopting or fostering, you have to put your body through this experience, and, it has impacts. You don't know what's going to happen.
Totally.
You could be on bed rest. You could not be able to work. I mean, a lot of us are lucky to be in real estate, and I think it's a great place to foster the idea of having kids because we do have so much more flexibility to go and pick up our kids, go and do these things. I mean, I would like your perspective on this, Misty, just because you said that you don't have as much flexibility if you are required to be there. But first you can give me your 5-year goal, and then you can tell me what you think on the next one.
So for me, I love what I do. I absolutely love it. But what I love more is helping people. And so it's interesting because I've always kind of seen myself as being some type of coach. Some kind of coach. I used to be a fitness technician. I helped women who had never exercised before accomplish their fitness goals. But a year ago, I had a psychic reading. And the psychic was like, you know what, you're good for the next 3 years with what you do, but you're meant to be a life coach. So he's like, you need to study neuro-linguistic pathway programming, NLP. So I was like, okay, so I started looking into it. It's what Tony Robbins does. When you talk to people, it's a psychological way of motivating people, essentially. Yep. And I had a real estate agent recently that I had met when I was working in title, and she was like, gosh, you'd be a great life coach. So I'm like, okay. So, and it's something that I know I would be passionate about, and where I would really want to focus is working with women who are career focused, but are also moms. So I'm a mom. I have a 12 and 10-year-old, and I've had to navigate what that looks like. And there have been times where I've had to make sacrifices of missing baseball games and wrestling matches and barbecues and family events on the weekends because of my career. And I made personal sacrifices to yield financial reward. And so it's kind of looking at that work-life balance and understanding, like, how do we do it? As a woman, who you choose to have children with completely matters. It completely matters.
Yeah. Amen.
And you do not know what they're going to be like until that child is born. So those are thoughts and things to think about. Because if your career is important to you, but the person you're with is like, nope, you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, or no, like, I don't do diapers. Okay, I've heard dads say that. I don't do diapers. I'm sorry.
That's a woman's job.
Right. Yeah. No, or I don't clean, I don't cook.
I don't clean toilets.
Right. And I have a girlfriend that I worked with. I really respect her. She's very career focused, but she's afraid to leave her children alone at home with her husband because he's not capable of doing the dad job. I'm sorry. That's not how it works. This isn't like a babysitter, right? Like, this is a parent. So, for me, I really could see myself being in that space. I would love it to be able to, I'm the friend that they always call me when there's like, I don't know what to do. What should I do about this job? Or I'm always the person that people come to when they're struggling with things. So I'm like, why not get paid for it? Why not get paid for it? And still, I have the background in helping people go back to school. I have the background in real estate and doing this. I mean, I could truly see myself doing that. So hopefully, I don't know if it'll be 5 years or 10 years or 3. I don't know. But I'm totally open to doing that. Eventually.
It's cool. That.
I support that.
Yeah.
So should we have kids?
Yeah. While we're at it, side note.
Yeah, let's just have a little life
Here's
coach.
Tell us. Right? I will tell you about children is that you do not realize how selfish of a person you are until you have kids. Because, the nicer dinners, maybe the $200 purses, like doing your hair and makeup, like the simple things that you do today, you take for granted, you know, when you're getting 2 hours of sleep because you have to get up to nurse the baby, or like, you know, everything shifts. But I will tell you, like, it is the most beautiful thing that you go through, and it's the best job that I've ever had, but it's equally the most difficult job I've ever had. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to make that decision for yourself. I do not regret my children, but I do regret losing myself as a woman to that process because I put them first. So,
have you read Untamed?
I have not.
I'm a reader. I love to
boot
read.
One, right?
Yeah.
On the front cover, it has like a hiking boot.
No, that's Wild.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But Untamed is like it's like very colorful, and it's a woman's journey basically of like she lost herself in motherhood and coming back to herself basically. Yeah. So it was a cool story. But that
and I've got a decade on most of you. I think I'm 42. So like I'm in a different space. You know, I had my first at 29, my second at 31. And I felt like that was a good time in my life to do that because I'd lived a little bit before. But now they're 13 and 10. I said 12 earlier. He just They're 13 and 10. And so it's kind of, I'm getting some of that time back because they're a lot more independent. So I'm getting some of that time back, and I'm relearning who Misty is, because for so long I was Misty the wife, or Misty the daughter, the sister, the mother, and now I'm like, no, I'm focusing on me, because if I'm happy, I can fill other people's cups.
And I'm sure they understand and love you more for it.
And honestly, like, my kids don't want anything to do with me right now anyway. Like, they're kind of like, ugh, Mom. You know? You start getting that attitude around, like, 10, 11. So,
fun.
And I love that we're having this conversation, because it's a conversation I have with my friends all the time. I mean, I'm the youngest here, so I'm 25. And we talk about if we're going to have kids and how many we want and why. And you know, it's especially because mine has gotten pushed back, and I used to be someone who used to think like I wanted them really young because my parents were young, and the generations before that were even younger, and our mindset has shifted because now I like to travel as well. I want to get out this crazy side, because you realize at that point you can't go back and change something. You can't go back and not have a child. You can't go back and, you know, all of a sudden make this situation where you could just up and leave and go and travel somewhere that you want to travel to. I'll be like, who's watching the kids? So
I will say though, traveling with kids is a lot of fun. I know that it doesn't
like,
look
fun.
No, it does not look fun at all.
And there are times that it can be stressful. Oh yeah. No, I've been that mom. Trust me, that part's not fun. But we have a goal to get them to all 50 states before they leave the house.
Oh, cool.
We're at like 35, 33 right now, and they're 13 and 10.
You could be my mom.
So like, right?
Right.
But it's kind of cool, like, you know, because they'll bring up like, do you remember that time when we were in Hawaii and we saw this and that? Or, you know, like, it's kind of really cool to like have that, so you can still do lots of things with children. It's just, you have to understand priority shift. Your mindset shifts. You're going to want to invest 100% into your child. Just don't lose yourself along the way. That's my voice. That's my advice. Yeah.
That's good advice.
No, absolutely.
I don't know. I have 6 cats. That's another one of my things. And what if my kid's allergic to my cats? I'm going to have to get rid of the kid, you know?
Me. I'm very allergic to cats.
I'm allergic to cats too, but it's called Zyrtec, Benadryl. They can take it. They'll be good.
Yeah. It's called if they're your own cats, your immune system adapts, and that's what mine did. Like I'm allergic to dogs too a little bit, and I was allergic to my dachshund for like 2 years. Like I used to get hives and things like that. But my immune system, I've been around him for 5 years, 6 years now, and he's my dog. And so my allergens are just used to him. And so, you know, it's a sucky process at the beginning. I mean, growing up, I had a hyperallergenic dog. I had a little Bichon, you know, the scariest dog in all the world. So
I got bit by one of those.
Okay.
Sorry. I have some trauma around Bichon rosé.
Really? Dang. Oh, wow. The one dog I had. But
Joy, you should get some cats, though.
Yes.
I used to have a cat a long time ago, and I loved him.
I would be willing to go to the shelter with you and adopt 2 cats for you.
I have one dog, and she's like 6 cats plus a dog. She's a lot of work. She's a lot.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. But yeah, for me, I think my 5-year is I want to have my own brokerage for sure. I definitely see myself having my own space, and I think I've started to lean into. I really love collaborative spaces. When I was in speech therapy, I always used to love the show Private Practice because I love this idea of you have everybody in their own specialty in the same building, and we work together on our clients and cases. And when I left speech, I always wanted to have that exact thing. I wanted to have psychologists there and a speech therapist and a physical therapist and all this stuff. And I think it still transferred into the real estate side for me. I would love to walk down the hall and have an office of real estate agents. I would love to go and have a titled office there that we work with, even though if they work with different people outside of that. But, we have this big collaborative space that we could work together and, answer each other's questions or, when a client walks in, it's a one-stop shop if they don't have all of those things already coming in. And I think it would be lovely to do that. And so that's kind of my goal for myself is maybe I might have a brokerage, but eventually have a collaborative brokerage. Cool. Awesome. It's something you don't see very often. And then, so that's kind of mine as well. Nice. So I guess I'm trying to want to end on that note. This one's a great one. What is a funny story that you've carried with you from your job? Like so far, like what is something that you think back on it and be like, I still can't believe this happened, or someone asked me this, or we had to go through this experience.
Am I going first?
Anybody can chip it if they have one that comes top of mind.
I have one.
Okay, go for it.
So I had this couple come in, and the first time I met just the wife, and she was telling me about her husband's kids and how they weren't the fruit of her loin, and she was like really nasty about them, right? Like her stepkids, yeah. Maybe she should. And I was just like, okay. And so she was just really just kind of not a nice person. And of course, they fell in love with one of the homes that we were offering, and so they became my clients. And so we're at the pre-construction meeting, and I'm there with her real estate agent. It was pre-construction. I'm there with her husband, the real estate agent, and my superintendent, and he's the one that oversees the build. So we're sitting there, and she's talking about something in a master closet. So the real estate agent herself and the superintendent all get up, and she's explaining to them. So I'm sitting there with her husband, and he's like, well, I just want to let you know, we're pretty persnickety, and I may have to growl or bite during this process. And I was like, what? Yeah, he's setting it up to where he may have to snarl his teeth, was his exact words. I may have to snarl my teeth through this process because my wife is very, like, we're persnickety.
What does that
mean? And I was like, right. So I'm like, oh, great. Like, we're like signing, we just wrote the contract, and now he's telling me this at pre-construction.
Oh, God.
So, yeah. So we go through the build process, and every step along the way, they're like difficult. Like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And everything that could go wrong with their build did. Like,
oh no,
but it was like karma, right? Like, they put that energy out there that
totally.
They were going to be that way. And then here we have, like, they had a wall that was kind of wavy, and that doesn't typically happen unless, like, you get, like, the drywall, like, something with the framing was off. They're on their hands and knees crawling around the kitchen island. Like, there's an 1/8 of an inch gap right here, like ridiculous stuff, right? So then she goes out and decides to order her own. Okay, so she wanted to use floor tile on the shower walls, and we're like, we don't advise that. Like, you should use floor tile on the floor, shower wall tile, but she wanted that marbled look, that. So what ended up happening is we installed the floor tile where she wanted it on the walls, and it was 2 different dye lots. So the tile itself from the manufacturer one had a little bit more blue veining and one had a little bit more gray veining. So like it looked like she had two different wall tile colors, and we advised not to do that. So then she went out and bought all her own tile, was expecting us to install. It was a big mess. What I have to say about that is, like, when you come at people with a negative, like, in the very beginning, karma's gonna get you, and it totally came back on them. So much that they're like, can we sell it back to you and you guys can build us a new house? Because they were so unhappy. Like, anything that could have gone wrong with that house went wrong with that house. And I was like, that never happened. But it happened to them because of snarling teeth.
Wait, growling?
Yeah. He's like, I may have to snarl my teeth through the process. It's like, whoa, Aaron, all right.
Oh my God. Put your teeth away, bro.
Right. Yeah.
It's weird.
Some of the clients we don't want to work
and
with.
I wanted to even say, because I've had to tell people before, you know what, maybe we're not the right builder for you. And that usually calms them down, and they're like, no, I do want. And I didn't, and probably should have. I'd even talked to my boss at one point. I was like, maybe we should cancel their contract. Like, I just think this is going to be bad, and it was bad. So, yeah.
Sometimes you have to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right, who has there? Anybody else have a story?
I can go. I mean, I could share stories about how my love for cats really deepened a lot of client relationships, and I'm not even kidding. But I'm going to tell two very short ones that have nothing to do with me specifically as an advisor. But at my office, it's in Cherry Creek, ground floor, so we see a lot of what goes on the street, and there's a lot of people that just like hit cars when they're parallel parking and just act like it never happened. Ooh. And one day I'm walking back from lunch with my coworker, and we see this car parallel parking, and I'm like, I have a feeling that this isn't going to go well. So we get inside the office, and we're just standing watching. And then this old man starts bouncing between the two cars. And it actually wasn't even a space. It was just a bigger space because of how the cars were parked. So he hits both the back car and the front car multiple times and then stops his car. Like, when he's actually parked, his, like, back bumper was on the front of the other bumper. And he's, like, getting out. He opens his door right in front of a car driving by and almost gets hit. And and by this time, the entire office is watching. And we're like, that must be one of our clients. And it totally was. He rolls in. Oh, my gosh. Deposits a check. So that's one really funny thing. And another thing that happened was some client, I wasn't there for this one, but I saw the photos. She thought that she was turning into the alley that leads to our parking garage, but she really just turned her car in between these two buildings and somehow ended up back in this, like, courtyard area. And her car was stuck in, like, a stairwell. And she was getting out, like, I just need to deposit this check. And, like, the cops had to come, and the picture that I saw was just her car stuck, and there's, like, caution tape all around.
Oh my gosh. Oh my Lord. The driving in Denver, I swear. Yeah. It's getting worse.
It is. Cherry Creek is sticky, though. Like, that's a hard place to find a parking space.
It's bad. I mean, we have a parking garage that we validate for. Oh, good. But getting into that parking garage, you never know what I don't know if you parked there, Alexus.
I sure didn't, because I couldn't find it, and I got a little stressed out, and I just parked and paid.
It's that you turn down an alley and you just don't know what's going to be in there. There could be multiple semis. It could be blocked off. It's a scary situation for sure. But we're moving buildings soon, so hopefully it'll get a little better.
Good to know. Nice. Good to know.
I'm sure your clients will thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, this happened, I want to say, beginning of this year. I had a really good friend that was in between putting her house on the market, and it's a townhome in Rhino. And she was like, I don't know if I should sell our place. We're going to go travel the world for a year. Or I was like, how about you rent it? Like, just let it appreciate. Just hold on to it, and then you get some income while you're traveling. So that's what she did. And I said, I'll help you with the pictures and get that coordinated, and I'll get a photographer out there. And I was like, I'm going to take this on and help you, okay? So she's gone. Her and her husband are getting on a plane to go, I forgot where they were traveling to. I get inside the house, and you go upstairs to the very top roof, and the door behind me just closes. Thank God. This is word of the wise. Always have your keys and your cell phone on you, no matter what, because I would have been on that roof till I died. But anyways, I left the house key on the countertop in the house, and I was stuck on the roof. There was nothing I could do. Yeah, so that was fun. And so I had to call her, and thank God I caught her before they got on the airplane. So she had to get her mother-in-law out there to let me in. She didn't have a key. The next door neighbor had to rescue me and like come and get me so I could come down and just get off the roof. So I'm standing there with the photographer, and I'm like, I don't think we're getting in the house today. So yeah, and then I had to meet the locksmith the next day and reschedule photography. It was fun.
My God. Oh my God.
Yeah, and this was like, I'm really trying to impress my friend. Like, I'm a professional. I could do this. And
then you get locked up. It
was great. Yeah.
Oh, no. Mine was, obviously there's a lot from like banking, like when you work in tellers and all of that. But I think from being in lending, I had this really stickler client. She was having a little marital problems, and you kind of know what I'm about to say, yeah. Uh-oh. And I worked with Misty on this one, yes. And she just. They were kind of, at the beginning when we were originally having this conversation, they were going to split, and so he wasn't going to be on title. And then she decided to change her mind and then put him on title. And it was just this back and forth. And there was a document that came in that needed to get signed because they had solar panels. And I looked over it and I was like, I already know she's going to have a problem with the way this is worded because it put him first on everything. It put his name first and things like that. But I was like, oh my God, who cares? It just signed the paper. Like, the house is in your name. We all know what the facts are. But it came back and she was just like, got on the phone with me and she said, look, I just don't like the way it's worded. Like, I don't want to be a slave. I don't want to have a slave name. And I was like, and personally, first of all, I'm of African-American descent. So I don't think she really thought about it this way, but I was sitting on the phone and I was like, there's so many ways I could approach this situation. And I was like, one of me wants to be like, I don't think this is the right way you should phrase this.
Right.
But then at the same time, I was like, I knew what she was saying. Like, she just didn't want to be property of her man. And that this is her property and all of this other stuff. And I was just like, okay. But it was just the way that she said it. And I sat there for so long afterward, and I was like, I can't believe she really just said that to me. But it was just quite funny, and it stuck with me ever since.
Yeah.
So that was my funny story. But I really enjoyed having you guys on this, and it was fun, ladies. Yes. And it was, I think, really going to be helpful for a lot of people listening. And I think that you all would be great for anybody that wants to work with you in any aspect. And if we get to work together, I would love that as well. But I just wanted to appreciate you guys for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, awesome.